What if you were taken from your home, not by choice, not by invitation, but by force? What if, in the span of a single morning, the streets you played in as a child were trampled by soldiers in foreign armor, and the temple where you prayed was desecrated by hands that did not fear your God? Would you still hold on to your faith, or would you let it slip away like sand through your fingers? This is the story of Daniel, a man of faith. The sun had barely risen over Jerusalem when the shouts began. The city wall shuddered with the thunder of Babylonian battering rams. Smoke curled into the air, carrying with it the scent of cedar wood burning, the same scent that used to mean festivals and feasts, now twisted into the smell of destruction. The air over Jerusalem was heavy with the smell of smoke and crushed cedar. Daniel, barely a teenager, stood with his back against the outer wall of the temple courtyard, clutching the sleeve of his friend Hananiah. The golden glint of the temple doors caught the late afternoon light. But that light was dimming, not from sunset, but from the dust of Babylonian chariots thundering toward the gates. "Daniel," Hananiah whispered, "we have to move." But Daniel's eyes were fixed on the massive bronze altar. In his heart, a prayer pulsed. "Yahweh, keep us in your truth, even far from here." He had been told to keep his head high. His mother's last words before they were separated echoed in his ears. "Remember who you are, and remember whose you are." Within hours, they were chained, driven through the gates like cattle. The streets of Jerusalem, once filled with the sweet smell of bread and the calls of market women, now reeked of burnt oil and fear. Mothers wailed, priests wept. The road to Babylon was long, and the desert nights were cold enough to make their teeth chatter. But the city they finally reached, it was like nothing they had ever seen. Towering walls painted with lions, gates covered in shimmering blue tiles, processional streets paved with stone. Spices hung in the air, cinnamon, cumin, frankincense, and the chatter of hundreds of tongues filled their ears. They were led through streets alive with music, merchants shouting, and slaves carrying treasures from conquered lands. But Daniel's eyes caught something else. Towering idols of gods he did not know, and people bowing to them without question. His heart clenched. The young captives were chosen for their looks, intelligence, and potential to serve in the king's palace. Daniel was among them, along with Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, his closest friends from Jerusalem. They were given new clothes, soft linen that smelled faintly of myrrh, and new names. Daniel became Belteshazzar, a name tied to Babylonian gods. It felt heavy on his tongue, like an identity that wasn't his. His friends became Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Brought into the palace training quarters, Daniel and his friends were told by Ashpenaz, the chief official, "You are to eat from the king's own table. Learn our tongue, learn our ways." The palace food was rich, roasted lamb dripping with fat, loaves glazed with honey, wine as red as pomegranate seeds. But Daniel could smell the sacrifice in it, the offerings to idols. He looked at the plates, then at his friends. "We cannot defile ourselves," he whispered. He bowed politely. "Sir, allow us only vegetables and water." Ashpenaz's eyes narrowed. "You risk angering the king." "Test us for 10 days, Daniel said. "See if we are not healthier than the others." 10 days later, the difference was undeniable. While others grew sluggish from indulgence, Daniel and his friends stood tall, their eyes clear, their minds sharp. The official, shaking his head in quiet disbelief, allowed them to continue their diet. And from that day, Daniel knew obedience to God is not in the grand gestures alone, but in the daily choices nobody else sees. Years passed. Babylon's streets became familiar. The clanging of bronze in the markets, the smell of roasted lamb, the chants in Akkadian drifting from temples. But one day, the air carried a different sound, the blare of horns and flutes. Years passed and Daniel's wisdom caught the attention of King Nebuchadnezzar himself. The king's eyes narrowed one day as he studied the young Hebrew before him. You understand things others cannot," the king said. "Tell me my dream and what it means." Daniel prayed that night, the moonlight spilling through the window like silver. By morning, God had revealed the dream. A statue of gold, silver, bronze, iron, and clay, shattered by a stone not cut by human hands. A kingdom that would outlast all others. When Daniel spoke the dream and its meaning, the court fell silent. Nebuchadnezzar's mouth opened slightly, his pride warring with awe. "Surely your God is the God of gods," he said, promoting Daniel to a high position. It was during this time that the fiery furnace blazed. The king, intoxicated with power, erected a golden statue taller than any man had ever seen. Trumpets blared, summoning all to bow before it. A herald's voice echoed, "All peoples, nations, languages, at the sound of the music, you will fall down and worship the golden statue that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not shall be thrown into the blazing furnace." Daniel was away on royal duties, but his friends, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, stood before the towering golden statue. Gold reflected the hot midday sun, blinding their eyes. Around them, thousands bowed. They remained standing. Whispers spread. Accusers ran to the king. Soon, they were before Nebuchadnezzar himself. "Is it true?" he roared. "Bow or be burned alive." Hananiah spoke, his voice steady. "O king, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, our God is able to save us. But even if he does not, we will not serve your gods." The furnace roared like a living beast. Soldiers pushed them in. The heat was so fierce the guards themselves fell. But inside, there was no scream, no smoke in their hair. The flames rose higher, devouring the air with a hungry roar. But as the crowd gasped because of what they saw, walking in the fire, four figures, and the fourth looked like a son of the gods. King Nebuchadnezzar rose from his throne, eyes wide. "Did we not throw 3 men bound into the fire? But I see 4, and the fourth looks like a son of the gods." When the friends stepped out, unscathed, the king's voice shook. "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." Decades later, Daniel was no longer a youth, but a respected elder in the Persian court. The city had changed rulers, but its heart was the same. Merchants still argued over dates and figs. Scribes still hunched over clay tablets. The perfume of myrrh still drifted through the streets. But jealousy has no age. Royal officials, bitter at Daniel's favor with the now king of Babylon, King Darius, he trusted him above all others. Too much, some thought. In the vast hall of marble pillars, 2 royal advisors approached the throne, their steps echoing ominously. They bowed low, their voices honeyed, yet laced with malice. "O King Darius, live forever," one began. "You know that all the governors, prefects, satraps, advisors, and officials have consulted together, and we agree there should be a royal law that for 30 days no one may pray to any god or man except you, O king." Darius raised a brow. "And why should such a law be needed?" The other advisors smiled faintly. "To unify the kingdom, my lord. To ensure all loyalty is directed to you alone. Those who disobey will be thrown into the den of lions." The king considered their words. unaware of the trap being laid. He glanced toward Daniel's chambers in the distance. Daniel had served faithfully through the reigns of Babylonian and Persian kings. Surely this law would not trouble him, or so Darius thought. "Very well," King Darius said. "Write it, and seal it with the law of the Medes and Persians, so it cannot be changed." The decree was written and sealed. Daniel heard it, and that very evening Daniel stood upon his balcony. The city stretched far beyond him, a maze of stone, markets and temples to foreign gods. But Daniel's gaze was fixed toward the west, toward Jerusalem. Though it lay in ruins, his heart still beat for it. He knelt, as he had done for decades, opening the windows wide, and began
to pray. His voice was low but steady. "O Lord, the great and awesome God, who keeps covenant and mercy with those who love you and keep your commandments, hear my prayer." From the shadows of an alley below, two spies watched, their faces twisting with satisfaction. "We have him," one whispered. By the afternoon, the royal court was in motion. Daniel was brought before the king, his hands bound, though his face was calm. Darius rose from his throne, his voice tinged with regret. "Daniel, is it true? Did you continue to pray to your God despite the decree?" Daniel's eyes did not waver. "O king, I honor you, but my loyalty first belongs to the living God, the maker of heaven and earth. I could not and would not cease to pray." The king's heart sank, realizing the plot too late. He turned on the accusers, his voice sharp. "You have tricked me." But the law of the Medes and Persians could not be undone. The sentence was sealed. As evening fell, torches lit the path to the great stone pit outside the city. The air was thick with the musky scent of beasts. From within the shadows of the pit, low growls rumbled, deep and primal. The lions paced, their massive bodies rippling with muscle under golden fur, their eyes glinting in the flickering light. Soldiers moved to unbind Daniel. King Darius, looking sad, stepped forward, his voice breaking. "May your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you." Daniel nodded once, peace in his eyes. "He will, my king." With a heavy thud, the stone cover was lifted, and Daniel was lowered into the darkness. The roar of the lions rose, echoing against the walls. The cover was rolled back into place, sealing him inside. Inside the den, the lions circled, their breaths hot and heavy. Daniel stood still, his heart pounding, yet his lips moved in prayer. Then, in an instant, the air shifted. A light, not of torch or moon, seemed to fill the den. An angel of the Lord stood before him, radiant, calm, his voice like the sound of many waters. "Do not be afraid, Daniel. The Lord has sent me to shut the lions' mouths." The great beasts slowed, their snarls fading into a strange, uneasy stillness. One lion lay down beside Daniel, its golden mane brushing his robe, its breathing deep and steady. King Darius could not sleep that night. He refused food, refused entertainment, and walked restlessly in his chamber. Every sound from outside made him pause, wondering if it was a cry from the den. Time passed, hours that felt like moments, and then the faint sound of movement around broke the silence. Morning had come. At the first light of dawn, King Darius hurried to the den, his royal guard struggling to keep pace. The massive stone was rolled away, and the king called out, his voice shaking, "Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to deliver you from the lions?" From the darkness came the clear, unwavering reply, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight, nor have I done any wrong before you." Relief and joy broke over King Darius's face. He ordered Daniel lifted out at once. Not a scratch was found on him. The king turned to the accusers, his voice like thunder. Throw them into the den they prepared for another. And before their feet touched the floor, the lions remembered their hunger. They leapt, and the pit echoed with the sound of their fury. That day, Darius sent out a decree to every nation, every people, every language in his kingdom. I issue a decree that in every part of my dominion, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. Daniel's story isn't about lions or fire alone. It's about where your loyalty lies when the pressure comes. He obeyed God in private and in public, whether it meant eating differently, standing when others bowed, or praying when it was forbidden. You may not face a den of lions, but perhaps you stand surrounded by voices waiting to tear you down, at work, in your family, or even within your own thoughts. You may face laws, policies, or peer pressure that push you to compromise your convictions. The temptation to blend in can be fierce, but like Daniel, faithfulness is not built in the moment of crisis. It is forged in the quiet daily choices to trust God above all. Daniel prayed 3 times a day, long before the decree came. His courage in the pit was the fruit of a lifetime of discipline and devotion. In our modern world, the lions may take different forms: a toxic workplace, online harassment, financial strain, or the fear of speaking truth when it's unpopular. Yet the same God who shut the mouths of lions is with you. He has not changed. When you choose to stand firm, you may lose comfort, friends, or opportunities, but you will gain something far greater: the presence and power of the living God in your life. So if you are in your own den today, remember Daniel's words: "My God sent his angel." He is still sending his help, still working miracles, still turning pits into testimonies. Do not bow to fear. Keep the windows open. Keep praying toward your Jerusalem. For the world may see you surrounded by lions, but heaven sees you surrounded by angels. And in the end, it will be clear: your God rescues, your God saves, and your God reigns forever. Faith isn't proven in comfort. It's proven in courage. Remember to subscribe, like, and share for more faith-worthy stories.